Welcome everybody. My name is Patrick Byrne. I'm the project manager for CityLAB Hamilton, and this is our second online matchmaker. If you missed our first one, we had Cynthia Graham with her challenge COVID-19 effects on parkland last week, and we have a recording up on our website. You can see all of our challenges and the videos up on our website, citylabhamilton.com. So thanks for joining us today. We have Meighan Finlay, Patty Tomlinson, and Greg Witt, who are going to tell us about their challenge today. I was really excited by this challenge because there's so many things that folks who don't work within the city or within cities don't understand about how cities work. And I think your work is really important to bridging the gap between what people understand the city does and what it actually does, and how we can communicate that effectively. And that really gets at the heart of this challenge. So I'm really excited to have you guys here to tell us about your challenge. So to get started, maybe we can have some introductions. So Meighan, can you tell us about your role at the city?
Okay, so currently my role right now is in a consultative capacity. NBN Canada is a collaborative of municipalities that look at developing performance measures for municipal services. And NBN Canada to date has been run as a project under the City of Hamilton. And so I'm the executive director there, and just started about a year ago, actually. I was with the city in previous capacities in community services, children's services in the neighborhood division, and have done some work for public health in the past. But this is my first exposure. A year ago was my first entry into the world of municipal service delivery and performance measurement. So that's my background, basically.
Thank you. Patty, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm trying to keep my distance from Meighan. So.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm the program manager for NBN Canada. I currently am on secondment from the City of Hamilton, but with the incorporation of NBN Canada, I will be an employee of NBN Canada. So my experience with NBN Canada, I was the municipal lead for the City of Hamilton for almost 10 years prior to moving into the program office. So I'm responsible for sort of the operational behind the scenes stuff that goes on in the program office.
Thanks, thank you. And just for everyone, the NBN Canada is the Municipal Benchmarking Network of Canada. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
That's the acronym.
Patty alluded to, we have been run as a project ID through the City of Hamilton for 10 years, and 2 years previous to that was run in the City of Niagara, or the region of Niagara. But we are going through the process of incorporation as a standalone entity.
Nice. Okay, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. So I am the municipal lead for the City of Hamilton. So there is one of me, a municipal lead for each one of the municipalities that are involved in the NBN network. And I get it, it's a mouthful, so we tend to use the acronym a little bit. So my role is really facilitating the data collection process and the performance measurement outputs between each subject matter expert in the City of Hamilton. So those people who are actually doing the collecting of the data from each one of the services that they provide. So think of waste, think of parks, think of recreation. There's about 36 of them in Hamilton. So my role is to facilitate that process, to get it from the raw numbers to get it to our annual performance report each year. So it's a little bit of project management, it's a little bit of facilitation, and it's about liaising with the great folks in the program office, Meighan and Patty, and making sure everything runs smoothly there, as well as advising them on the program, continuous improvement work that the program does itself, as part of my role as one of the sister cities in the network. So that's a little bit of I guess, a summary of what I do. And unlike Patty and Meighan, who are NBN centric, I am actually a city employee of the City of Hamilton, and I do have a day job as well, where I actually work out of the Housing Services Division and provide. I am a policy advisor there, so I wear two hats really at once. So nice. Yeah. So that's a little bit of a background of what I do, a little bit of an idea of the governance of NBN, and kind of how it all fits together.
Nice. That's great. Thank you. Can I, Greg, put you on the spot with a question? So we've sort of thrown around some of these different terms and benchmarking and comparing municipalities, but in like a sentence, what would you say is, what does MBN Canada do?
Yeah, I'd say we measure performance of municipalities across the country for the goal of facilitating continuous improvement. So it's not about saying, well, municipality X is doing worse than municipality Y and they need to improve and get up to speed. It's not about that at all. It's about continuously working together to bring the rising tide raises all boats. So that's the goal of the organization, and it all begins with data sharing.
That was good. You've done that before, clearly. It's something I wanted to give the opportunity, maybe to Patty or to Megan. We won't go through everybody, but just building on that from Greg, can you tell us why you think the work is important? Why is it sort of personally interesting to you, and why does it matter to the City of Hamilton?
Well, for me, my previous experience was with public health and doing public health accreditation. So the notion that there's always room to improve, and there's always the ability to learn from others doing similar work to improve your capacity, to improve your knowledge, and ultimately to improve the service that you're delivering. So for me, the perspective is that most municipal service sector employees are really there to actually provide a service to the local user, i.e. the municipal resident. And I think that's a worthy goal. I think oftentimes people think that municipalities sort of just run, and usually we focus on the things that aren't working well and complaining about what we don't have, rather than really having an understanding of the work and effort that's put in to provide services at, I think, really great levels to a local user. So for me, it's always been about a passion of demonstrating that there's a value to your tax dollar, or value to the resources that you're putting in, because you're actually benefiting from that. And there's a real level of dedication, I think, across most municipal employees. So MBN Canada is just another way of being able to collect that data and that evidence to demonstrate to that local user that we're really giving you a good bang for your buck, but also a valuable service that you might not otherwise get if it were not for the work of these municipal service area experts in comparing data across, in wanting to improve, in benchmarking, in sharing knowledge across, so that they can constantly improve the level of service delivery in their community.
Nice. Yeah, wonderful. And that's, I think that sort of gives some good background too on part of the reason that you've come forward with this challenge too, of trying to sort of communicate that to people. So let's sort of turn our attention to the challenge. So Megan, we worked closely to put that together, to sort of put the final version together. I know everybody was involved in looking at that as well. But maybe you could guide us through the challenge that you've put forward, and give us a bit of background on sort of where the challenge lies, what the problem is, but then also sort of moving into what you see the opportunity for students to be.
Okay. Yeah, so as we talked about, it is a collaborative. We have 15 municipalities across Canada. Primarily, most of them are in Ontario, but we also have municipalities in Quebec, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, what else am I missing? Calgary, and then of course Ontario. And I think that the challenge that we have on a day-to-day basis is not just collecting data, because we do that, but we're actually, through collaborating, identifying performance measures. And those measures are looking at the data and trying to find a calculation or a result or a way to present it that will allow us to compare apples to apples across all municipalities. So it's not just a data set out there that says, this is a number of this is a number of that. It's comparing what we're doing and the level of service. So we look at our measures in terms of customer service, service level, efficiency, and community impact. And we really are looking at moving even more into the community impact piece. So looking at our measures and developing measures that really speak to what the user expects, or the local user expects or needs. And so developing those measures that will tell that story. So this is a progression that's been ongoing over the years, and we hope through each iteration we improve upon that. So it's the data collection, but part of the challenge is really being able to take that information when it's done and present it in a report that allows the end user to really understand what we're measuring and what the value of that information is in terms of the value to them in understanding the level of service, but the value to the service area experts in improving their performance by looking at those measures as well. So we generate every year a performance report. It's roughly 150, Patty, would you say about 160 measures, public measures, or more? Is it 300? Wow. See, this is my inexperience. About 300 measures. So it's a public report. We have over 600 measures, but we're only reporting publicly on around 300 of them. And the report is a report right now. It contains the measure name, a bit of the descriptor of what that measure is. There's a table of the results, and then it's all done in a graph. And it's done by service area. So as Greg mentioned, we do have 36 service areas. But the challenge that we're having is that the report itself has multiple end users. The report is used to inform our service area experts to help them compare across one another and look at opportunities for improvement or enhancement. It's used by municipal CAOs to get a better sense of the services that they're delivering. It's also used for them to report to their councils, municipal councils. But the primary person that we're looking at from this project is it's also there and it's available on the public, not just to your local user, but to other, to the entire public. So anybody could really download the report and take a look at it. And what we want the report to do is tell a story. Right now, we kind of feel that there's graphs and charts, but there's some pieces missing in the ability of the limitations that we have with the report right now, and somebody really understanding what level of service is being provided, why the difference is, what are the comparators, because we have regional municipalities, we have single tiers, we have different types of municipalities. So when I look at this graph, it may or may not tell me enough that I need to know in order to understand what my municipality is doing for me as a service area, as a local user. And so really we face a challenge in really telling the story about what is the scope of the work that municipalities do and what is the impact to the consumer on the work, on that level of service, but also what does MBN do to sort of help municipalities move that forward. And I think the challenge we have is telling that story via one performance report. That could also be used for other target audiences, I guess.
Right. So translating the wealth of information that you collect and helping people to understand, broadly in a broad sense, what municipal governments do for them, and translating that value in a way that hasn't traditionally been an audience for MBN Canada. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I think it's something we didn't put in our scope. That I think is also sort of a challenge is it also ultimately, when the local user understands, they're better informed to provide feedback to that municipality about how they can continue to improve. So they can't provide feedback to say, this is what I would like, which is what MBM is trying to sort of focus on. What is the expectation of the user if they don't know what they're getting in the first place? So that's sort of another challenge is really trying to empower the local user to be able to provide additional feedback to the municipality to continue to improve their services. Yeah,
and there's a real sort of democratic engagement piece in there. To my understanding, is how do we have intelligent conversations with shared understanding of what what money is being spent where, right? And I think that's really important to the conversation that happens in not only around council tables but within communities. So that's really fundamental work.
Patrick, just on that one note, you also mentioned that challenge in terms of strategically, that is the other piece of the context that often isn't in the report, is the sense that strategically a municipality may be focused on a specific service area because that's an area they think needs more improvement based on public engagement, based on the results. And so when you're comparing the results, you may not see this sort of level of improvement from a certain municipality because their focus may be on another. So again, it's about that context and helping the end user really understand what their municipality's focus is and how they're using information to improve their local services.
Right. So that's a great framing of the challenge, I think, and helps to sort of flesh things out a little bit. Now going on to sort of the second piece of that is, what do you, and maybe others can jump in too. I don't want to sort of dominate with Megan, but I'll put it out to the group of what's the sort of specific challenge that you've put out for for our faculty and students? And then building on that, what are ways in which you think there might be possibilities for them to be involved in helping you with this challenge?
Greg, do you want to start with that, or?
Sure. So I ultimately, I think the goal is coming up with a more digestible and easy to consume product for the general public. So if I could use an analogy, if I will, for every other product out there, if you go out shopping, for example, for a dishwasher, you know, I'm probably not going to download the SEC filings for Samsung and read 1,000-page report about stocks performing and all of these charts and graphs, right? I'm probably going to go to Consumer Reports, right, or some sort of a Yelp, some sort of online review that so I can get the answer I'm looking for in 5 minutes or less. Right now, MBN is in a similar problem. We present an annual performance report that's hundreds of pages long. And of that hundreds of pages, only parts of it people will be interested at any given time. So what we want to do really is come up with a intuitive way for people to take chunks of that report and take the information from it and consume it within 5 minutes or less. So just like newspapers are written at kind of the 10th or 11th grade level, we kind of want to take the performance report, which is written for, you know, policy wonks like me, council members, you know, CAOs, experts in the field. We want to take that and make it sexy. We want to give it some appeal to the common person, so then they can help make decisions and have informed conversations, become more engaged in the democratic process, like you said. Now they're not able to do that with a performance report. It's just too bulky. And I have conversations as part of my role in reporting back our results to our senior management team and having those discussions. Even some of them are like, this is too long. I'm not going to read this. Give me the gist of this. So if they're not reading the report, there's a problem. So ultimately, we want to achieve a product that accomplishes that goal. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. And I think we should change the title to Making City Data Sexy.
I like that.
Yeah, and that's great, Greg. I think a piece of the challenge that you put forward too was around, you know, particularly around data visualization. Does someone want to speak to that sort of piece a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So again, that is the trick. Is sort of, we have data visualization, but we're very limited. We've got, you know, basically graphs and tables. And I know that there's so much more out there that really engages the user, but provides in a snapshot, if you will, enough information to get a really good understanding of what that service area does. And then specifically in each page, that level of service, you know, in a graphic that's a little bit more, as Greg said, intuitive, user-friendly. So really for us, it's a challenge of saying, what are the barriers to people understanding data?
In general, yeah.
In general, and then how do we take this data that could be complicated without that sort of infographic or visual data visualization tools that we need? But also, is there an interactive way? Does our report have the potential to have an interactive component to it that could be online or web-based or something like that? But really just, what are those barriers in understanding how people see information or need to see information in order to understand it? Because ultimately, as Greg said, it's about engagement, it's about empower, but it's also about building public trust and confidence in that local municipality and in the service that they're getting. And I think that's a big thing that MBN ultimately has a goal of saying, what we really are trying to do is to enhance or to really demonstrate the value of municipal service and to increase the public's confidence and trust in our ability to provide the services that they